Right.
Hey guys, so the new trailer for Silent Hill F, aka Siren here, is out. And I gotta say, it looks awesome. So it seems this time it's got like a complete Japanese vibe. The symbology of the red spider lilies is apparently death. So it seems to chase the main character around, so encroaching death sort of deal. The monster design this time seems to have like a Japanese sort of twang to it. And for some reason that just really meshes authentically with the body horror. The whole thing just comes across as a great big sort of giant homage to the early and great Fatal Frame games. And the Japanese setting is fresh for horror, just all things considered. The game just feels really authentic and like fresh, as if it was like created by, you know, legitimate artists, you know, with like an actual understanding, lived experience of the culture of Japan, who have something to say, rather than, you know, a set of fucking blue-haired, septum-ringed AI woke writers just trying to smuggle in as much trans and feminist and black shit as possible everywhere they can. But it's not that. I'm on board. It looks fucking great. Looks awesome. Looks unified in its storytelling and its principles. Looks awesome. I give it a solid chance of succeeding. Like themes wise, like I've got no idea what the encroachment of death with the spread of the red spider lilies is. I don't know what that is specifically a metaphor for. Could just be like the, you know, death comes from us all sort of thing, you know, like but like more specific to Japanese culture, it could be like a couple of different things. Like it could be World War II Japanese, that they used to take massive losses, and like if they lost battles that like really badly, they tend to commit seppuku, or, you know, ritual suicide and all that sort of shit. Like I think it was after the Battle of Saipan where they lost, and it became imminent that they were about to invade Japan itself, and they were in bombing range. A bunch of the Japanese soldiers threw themselves off the cliffs of Saipan to commit suicide out of shame for failed duty to the state. So it could be that. It could be the what would you say? The metaphor for the spreading of the news back home in mainland Japan, as the US was just steamrolling the Japanese forces, and every bit of news you heard was just spreading death. Like, obviously spreading death, like just the mass losses of infantry and the ritual suicide out of shame after it. Like that's what it could be a metaphor for that, the encroaching red spider lilies. It could just be a metaphor for the upheaval and decay of Japan's society at this time, because there was a lot of thoughts at the time. It was one of the reasons that they decided to do the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing. There were thoughts that the Japanese were so indoctrinated and fanatical that they were literally going to fight to like the last child with like wooden spears and stuff, inflicting as much losses on the Americans as they could. So that could be like another metaphor for it. The impending loss and death in duty. And it could also just be like a flat metaphor for the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or the fire bombings of Tokyo as a whole, like those civilian bombing campaigns spreading throughout Japan, and the totalitarian response to it, and the death and the starvation that spread from the lack of resources. It could be all of that. Look, it's rife. It's just a great area for telling a story like that. Whatever it is, it's going to strike hard, it's going to fit the theme, and it's going to be both loyal, and it's also going to commit to the theme, which is all you can really ask from art, and it just seems really unique and original. But look, there's tons of ways it could go. It just looks really good. And have you noticed that none of us supposedly misogynist people are calling out the main protagonist is like a Japanese schoolgirl this time? Because, the art has actual substance to it that outweighs the politics, so it doesn't fucking matter now. But, then you've got Heretic Prophet, which is, we're gonna do an edgy atheist... Fucking old cuckman. We're going to do an edgy atheist take on religion and how it's bad. Meanwhile, they're trying to claim everything that, Christian common law and Christian values has given the West as secular atheism, while completely ignoring, the secular atheism of, communist Russia and communist China and North Korea. Fuck off. Then, you fucking piece of shit. Fucking scumbag. Anyway, tangent over. Now, all that being said, all that supposedly Japan being the victim, the Japanese civilians being the victim under the totalitarian state, all that sort of thing, it also fits really well into the sort of guilt aspect of Silent Hill as well. Because, all of what I said paints America as the bad guys. But that wasn't the case. Even given all of that, the Americans weren't the bad guys. The history of Japan at that time was brutal. They were just this ruthless totalitarian state. You got the invasions of Korea, the war crimes against Korean civilians. You got the invasion of China, the rape of Nanking, what the Japanese did to pretty much civilians everywhere where they were, occupied, what they did to prisoners of war that they took, including under, what was that friggin' fruity American general? I think it was the Philippines, MacArthur, when they captured, his men and that sort of deal. Fucking worked them to death, starved them to death, tortured them, that sort of deal. Then you got the Unit 731 on the Chinese, where they were doing, horrible, torturous medical experiments on the Chinese, and didn't even learn that much from it, even then, which is just, that's fucking horrible. If you're gonna do medical experiments on fucking people, at least learn something from it. Don't just have it be, you're fucking raping people and infecting them with, syphilis just for fucking lols, which is basically what Unit 731 was. It was just absolutely brutal and horrible. Pouring, ice-cold water on people, and then on their arms and shit, and then trying to treat the frostbite that came from it by pouring boiling water on it, and then, degloving them and shit. It's just horrible. The Japanese were fucked. Fuck World War II Japan. That was just a shit place. And like in addition to that, Japan's like a totalitarian state, and it's run by police and this whole obedience, this ruthless obedience to the state sort of deal. So you got no free speech. You're expected to do ritual suicide if you fail in attacks and all that sort of shit. Just a horrible hell-like place, right? And all of that's intertwined with the afterlife and service to the emperor and all that sort of deal. So it's like, it's one of the worst places to be, right? Like, people give, Nazi Germany a lot of shit. And, fair enough, it was bad. It did do medical experiments on the Jews. It did kill fucking millions of Russians, but half of that was Stalin's fault for, ordering attacks into encirclements and all that sort of shit, which, allowed the Germans to take masses of prisoners, and then the prisoners ended up in camps, and they were literally starved to death in camps. Sound familiar? But yeah, like, Japan's up there. It's a fucking horrible place. Like, all the time, like, they took over civilian places. They were like cutting heads off with samurai swords and shit, fucking raping all the time, bayonet practice on prisoners of war. Just the worst shit. Like, they really do get overlooked as being one of the worst powers in the Second World War. They really do. But, like, all of that plays into the theme of guilt. Collective guilt in Silent Hill. More like societal guilt. Like, in the trailer, there was, like, one monster design that could be applied as a metaphor. It appeared to be, like, one body, but it had multiple faces, and that could just be like a metaphor for the the symbol of social ostracism during the war and the totalitarian state, for having failed to live up to the duty to the said evil totalitarian state. Just all the pieces of it fit really well together, and like, I'm on board for it. It looks like a really good Silent Hill game. Better than that though, since it's divorced from American culture and that sort of deal, it basically just retains the mechanics of Silent Hill, which is like some sort of original sin that they're atoning for, and all the body horror reflects that original sin. But they've completely removed it from American culture this time, and they have just inserted Japanese culture into it, and it just fits, and it just looks really awesome and unique. Like, I'm just totally on board with it. Like, in an age where, everything's a remake, everything's an adaptation of a book, everything's, not much originality. It's just shit like this that just, shines. And it just looks really good, and I'm on board for it. It looks awesome. And, like, even in addition to all that, like, it's got that. So in Silent Hill 1, it had a bunch of ash, right? It was raining ash. When the monsters and shit approached, you heard the air raid siren. The air raid siren went off, and then it went all dark. And that was the entrance into the shadow world, or whatever you want to bloody well call it. This one has seemingly something like that as well. Like, it's already pretty horrible and misty or whatever, but the entrance to whatever the shadow world is and the approach of monsters and all that is signified by the red spider lilies, which is symbolic of death. And like, that is just unique, and it's also visually striking because it's like red on screen, and it's obvious glaring red. It's like a strong visual indicator, and it looks good. It looks original, and it looks striking, and the red stands out. The red is obviously the blood or death or whatever, and it just works theme-wise. It looks very original and, awesome. But yeah, I'm on board. Original, yet still distinctively Silent Hill. Doesn't look like it has a whole lot of, stupid girl boss woke shit in it. Doesn't look like it has any of this, Yasuke in ancient Japan, the Black Samurai. Doesn't have any of that dumb shit in it. Doesn't appear to have any fucking trans people in it. I think the amount of trans people in like a totalitarian state, particularly, let's say, like a borderline communist one, but let's, for example, use ancient Japan. I fucking doubt there was many trans people in fucking ancient Japan. I'm glad that they haven't fucking injected any. Like, they stand out, and that's the time where you really didn't want to stand out. Like, you would just get fucking cut off at the knees by your neighbors. Like, if you had too much money, you could get cut off by the, at the knees by your neighbors. Even if you were, like, wealthy and you were generous with the wealth, you would still have, like, one resentful cunt in the fucking village that would betray you to the government and make up rumors and shit about you and get you thrown into gulags. Like, I'm assuming the Japanese are pretty much the same way, especially with their, like, totalitarian sort of state. To even imply that, trans people could coexist in, like, a horrible hell-like totalitarian communist state. It's like pretty funny. And like in the West, it's just manifested itself as this fucking fascistic sort of hate speech sort of thing, where they're like a protected class. And like that's only gonna last as long as the West lasts. And if the West fails and it becomes like a fucking totalitarian state, those people are gonna be the first to get fucking picked off, right? they stand out. And since they're a protected class, they manage to control, like, I assume, a reasonable amount of wealth. Particularly with all the fucking Sweet Baby Inc. dumb shit and all the Hollywood backing them and all the Hollywood backing their themes and all that sort of shit. Even though it's, purely superficial that they're all doing that. They'll get fucking picked off as soon as shit goes bad, right? It's only because we're in a time of plenty that those people haven't been picked off right now. And, like, people are trying to make, scant resources and shit like that. Fucking bad idea if you like trans people to make all the resources scant. Because, like, they're gonna be, like, one of the first people targeted. And then it's gonna be all the minorities. Look at all the fucking Islamic states and shit that have this going on. The first people they target are the minorities, the people that can't fight back. Like, even in current day China, what they do is they target the select few millionaires and billionaires or whatever. Who was that Jack Ma bloke? I'll use him as an example anyway. They, like, fucking put him in prison, just seized all his wealth for the fucking state. Like, and that's an example of a man, like, standing out because he's, like, sort of exceptional. I think he created Alibaba or something, which brought, like, a shitload of money to fucking China or whatever. You've got people like that, and, in the communist state where, like, everyone's meant to be equal, they're, like, the first people targeted, and, like, visually speaking, trans people fucking stand out. And it irks people that they stand out because they don't fit the normal, I don't know what you would say, gut instincts of people. They're very different. And that's not even necessarily a bad thing, but it's also a pretty bad thing if, like, what they're proposing is communism and all that sort of shit. And, like, Silent Hill has that to a certain degree as well. There appears to be a certain degree of social ostracism in the game because it's like a group of mean schoolgirls. So it's going to play on the children are cruel thing, and it's also going to play on the social ostracism of different people thing, especially with that, one monster design that's in the trailer for like half a second. And it appears to be like one being, but it has multiple faces. So that's just obviously symbolic of fucking, social ostracism, getting ganged up on by a group of monsters and all that sort of shit. While a group of, children, which are, kind of are monsters. They're very cruel, put it that way. But yeah, look, the whole theme fits well. I'm glad it's not fucking woke. And I'm glad it hasn't injected any sort of race, sex, or, other types of communism, let's say, gender communism, race communism, sexism, all that sort of thing. All those things that tie conveniently to Marxist attacks on the Free West. It seems to be slightly attacking from a guilt angle the Free West from Japanese culture. And look, Japan has it did get conquered by the US. It has a reasonable claim to be upset about, right? It's not like, trans people hypothetically, theoretically were mistreated because they're, different. Even though in every other single culture in the world, they're obviously going to get singled out immediately. Like Islam, which is the next biggest besides, Christian majority, are going to throw them right the fuck off of rooftops, right? And I mean, you can attack the West for that, but, it's closer to human nature than it is to, capitalism or anything else, really. It just seems to be part of a society that outsiders are attacked. And there's no one, more outsider than trans people. They're an outsider to themselves. But, I'm not saying attack trans people, but, yeah. I mean, you don't need to rub them in our faces in order to install communism and make us all starve, if you know what I mean. But anyway, I guess all that, or a reasonable amount of that, is irrelevant to Silent Hill F, aka Silent Hill, which I am keen for. Looks like a good horror game. Looks like a classic, Japanese horror game. I'm on board for it, and it looks awesome.
Fuck up!